on untreated, unchecked, is the entire, but the fatigue, we have to be careful because of course she's fatigued. I mean, she may be getting up every hour and a half at night, you know, for weeks now. She may have been up at the hospital, so of course she's, any new mother is going to be tired. What is different about fatigue and postpartum depression is when she lays down, she generally cannot rest. Cannot even close her eyes.
Okay, let me interrupt you here. We're going to need to take a break. When we come back, we will hear one mother's story and have a chance for Dr. Shahidi to comment on what our volunteer had to say. Join us. Of your children?
With my daughter, I really didn't know what normal was. It was like all of a sudden I had this new person in my life, and I didn't really know all the stress behind it. So it was quite an experience, and I got depressed at some point a couple months after the baby was born because my life wasn't what I was used to. But I didn't know that's what it was. I just thought that that was normal. And then when I had my second child, that was very depressing to me. I mean, I loved the baby and everything, but when I was pregnant with him, his father died, so I had this like enormous amount of stress of me being the sole caretaker of this child. That was very stressful.
How did you heal from that?
I stayed busy. Through the whole pregnancy, I stayed busy. I worked part-time, and I went to school full-time and took care of my daughter. That's all I could do, just to stay busy so I didn't have to think about it.
And then after you delivered?
That's when the depression really hit, because it was like a reality that I have this child, but I don't have the father, and a lot of feelings about what was going to happen throughout his life, not being brought up with a father. But he has a lot of positive role models, male role models in his life now, so that's...
And at this point, how is your depression?
I think it's pretty much gone. I mean, on holidays, like on his birthday, he just turned a year old, and that was hard. A lot of anger came up, you know, damn it, why isn't he here, you know. But other than that, I think time heals. It really does. When I never understood what that meant until it happened to me.
Thank you so much. Welcome back. Linda, I'm sure you may have had some thoughts or feelings about the story that she was willing to share with us.
Something that really stands out is the loss, you know, that she lost her husband, but prior to that, the loss that she talked about with the depression in the after the first pregnancy, after her daughter was born, she said, I just thought so much was gone, or so much was lost, and that's a really typical kind of feeling of it, because everything is, you know, your body looks different, whoever you were, your freedom is lost, you know, there's a lot of loss involved. The loss of the illusion of the perfect birthing experience, the perfect baby, being the perfect mother. There's a lot of loss to deal with. But then going on, when she lost her partner while she was pregnant, that's a real risk. I mean, that's a real, consider a person at very high risk for postpartum depression, losing a loved one. It doesn't have to be something as significant as the partner, a mother, a favorite aunt, a favorite neighbor, a loss. That just sort of seems to leave the woman very predisposed to developing postpartum depression.
So there are some predisposing factors, some things we could know in advance that might make us more vulnerable?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
One of those is the environment that the mother is in while she's pregnant and even before the pregnancy. So if she's in a stressful relationship with the father, that's considered very high risk. Women who have stressful pregnancies because of conflicts in the relationship report a lot of postpartum depression.
And actually that's interesting, because I know that there are women who have children to try to stabilize the relationship. In fact, I've worked with couples who they felt the solution to their marital difficulty was to have a child. And it would sort of bring them together, and then they would be able to have a shared focus.
And what a surprise.
A surprise!
There's, you know, yeah, there's some uniting and there's some joy around it, but boy, if the relationship is stressed and under a lot of conflict, it's likely to be much more stress and a lot more conflict when the child is born. The saying is, you know, get your marital counseling while you're pregnant. Don't wait until the baby's born, because do what you need to do. If you need to get your finances in order, if that's what you're fighting about, do it while you're pregnant, or better yet, before. Don't expect it to get better when the baby's born. Another environmental thing that I can't underscore enough, as important as the relationship, is social isolation. Women who are isolated from their families, from other adults, from other women, other mothers, are very high risk. In fact, many people believe social isolation is one of the primary causes, aside from the biological component. But if you just look at environment, social isolation may be more important even than the relationship with the partner.
And you know, that's particularly important because women, I would imagine, do tend to isolate after the birth of their child anyway. I mean, even with a support system, because they have to be on call 24 hours a day. And for a lot of women, they've never had that level of dependency. You know, and I would imagine that's a real shift to suddenly have that responsibility of another human being, and it's completely your responsibility. I would think that would be overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, and it's also just frankly hard to get out the door. I mean, part of the reason they're isolated, it just takes a lot of energy to get out, even by 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So people start saying, oh, you know, I just won't get dressed today. You need to get dressed. You need to take a shower. You need to, if you wear makeup, apply some makeup. Even if you're not going to see anyone, you need to do those things you normally would do, and, you know, go out with a friend for coffee, join a new mother support group. Very important. To keeping a network of support. You know, it's just critical. Don't suffer alone.
So you know, we were looking at our continuum. So let's say if we go back to our graphics, at the next level we begin to have some postpartum reactions. So we've entered the depression, it's not better, then we move into maybe struggling with some reactions like you mentioned the anxiety or the mania, panic reactions, maybe having obsessive compulsive thoughts. Can you give us a case example of a mom who might be struggling with that level of concern?
A common obsessive thoughts and the panicky, agitated kind of reaction is, I would say, as common in my experience as depressing crying, the sort of things you normally think of with depression. The hyper, speaking very fast, feeling, you know, like startling easily and all that. The obsessive thoughts, and this is where the thoughts of harming the baby come in. A case comes to mind of a mother that was afraid of entering the kitchen because there was too many things in the kitchen that she felt like she could harm the baby with. So she was afraid to use the microwave, thinking that the baby could fit in the microwave and she might just shove it in. Or the dishwasher, or the knives. She might just pick up a knife and stab it. She had these thoughts going over and over. It's not like a fleeting image. It is a constant, obsessive, all night long, I'll cut the baby, I'll put it in the dishwasher, you know what, it's very relentless, very painful, and very treatable. That's why we encourage people, call somebody, call your healthcare provider. You know, it responds very well to treatment. Such as, I mean, what can a mom do? Do you use medication? How do you intervene with those kind of frightening thoughts? The continuum of intervention is just as long as the continuum of possible reactions.
Okay.
Everything from joining a support group, which is considered sort of a low-level intervention, where she's just around other women, to outright hospitalization to protect herself and to protect the baby. That would be rare. That would follow more in the case of women who are having more of a psychotic or a very extreme depression.
Okay.
But in the middle, medication is often used. Because of the biochemical component, these depressions respond very well to depression. Very well to medication.
So but then again, what if you're nursing? I mean, what do nursing moms do?
Well, that's a tough one, Mary, and that's something that every woman individually needs to discuss with her own pediatrician and obstetrician. It depends on the medication. Some have shown to not be harmful. Some people would tell you absolutely stop breastfeeding if you're going to take psychiatric medication. You need to discuss it in your individual case, your individual pediatrician.
Before making that kind of decision.
Before making that decision.
Now, we have the last end of the continuum you mentioned briefly, which is psychosis.
Yeah.
And in that case, maybe people begin to have delusions, hallucinations, begin to see things that aren't there, feeling so confused that they're not able to function. Have you ever worked with somebody who is really struggling with that level?
I have, and it's too recent for me to go into it without, without having her permission, so I'll kind of steer away and discuss it sort of in more abstractly. One thing that's important about a psychotic reaction is it's life-threatening. I mean, I can't, again, underscore that enough, is that it's a medical emergency. If you're around a new mother and she starts seeming very confused, seeing things that are not there, hearing things, this requires immediate medical attention because women actually die during these periods, not just from suicide, but from whatever is going on biochemically can actually cause death. But short of that, the risk of suicide or what we call infanticide, killing her baby, is also a risk. I mean, she's out of touch with reality. The baby may look like the devil to her or anything else. So,
and in fact, we've had some media attention about postpartum psychosis as a possible contributing factor.
I say unfortunately because that's almost the only thing that gets covered is when a woman does kill the child or does something very drastic like that, and we're talking like one in 1,000.
Yeah, 1 in 1,000.
Compared to 20% who may be depressed and may have thoughts of harming their baby, but it's very rare to actually act on those thoughts.
So it's important to not be frightened by media coverage, not be afraid to tell somebody because they're going to lock you up, or maybe to realize that there's different levels, and the sooner you intervene, the better. It sounds like waiting is not to somebody's advantage.
Waiting's to nobody's advantage, and not to say, oh, I've never thought of harming my baby. I mean, I experienced postpartum depression, and I did not think of harming my baby. That doesn't mean you don't ask for help.
That's
you don't
right.
look at the extreme and say, oh, well, I'm not near that severe, therefore I don't have to. Why suffer with it? It's treatable. It's not your fault.
And we're going to need to close there, but you're right. Why suffer when you don't have to? Join us next week as we take a close look at the criminal thinker. This is Mary Crocker Cook. This is Bay Area Psychology, and good night.